Last year in January, I gave birth to a gorgeous baby girl. She was born in the UK at 26 weeks, and in Irish legal terms, she was aborted. I'm a happily married woman. My husband and I chose to have a baby, and we were delighted to be having our third child. But when we went for our 5-month scan, we were told that our baby would not survive. She had no kidneys. Now, the kidneys produce urine, obviously, and in the womb the baby wheezes this out and it turns into amniotic fluid, but because she wasn't producing any urine, there was no fluid around her, which meant that her poor wee body was taking the full weight of all my internal organs, plus any other pressure like food or me getting knocked. And also because of this, there wasn't enough room for her to grow. So instead of measuring 25 weeks, she was measuring 21 weeks. And she was essentially being crushed to death. The hospital told us that the chances were she wouldn't survive beyond 30 weeks because her heart wouldn't be able to take the pressure of all this weight. But that if I did go to term to 40 weeks, she would suffocate at birth. Because there wasn't any fluid around her, she couldn't practice breathing, so her lungs wouldn't develop. So even if she survived the crushing and if she survived the birth, she would try to take her first breath and nothing would happen. She would suffocate in front of me and my husband. Her lungs were closed and they were never going to open. So then the hospital told us that they would continue to look after my health for another 15 weeks until she was born or until she died. You know, I just kept waiting for them to tell me what to do. I kept waiting for them to tell me to come in and be induced. I mean, they told me that no matter what we did, she wasn't going to live. So why prolong her pain? I couldn't stop crying, I couldn't sleep because I didn't know what position I could sleep in that wasn't crushing her. It was horrendous. And then after discussing with my husband, we both decided that we couldn't bear the idea of her being in pain for the next 15 weeks inside me or her suffocating at birth. So we decided to go to the UK. And you know, for so many Irish women, compared to so many Irish women, I was so lucky that I had a family in Britain that I could go and stay with my mum in Scotland. We went the next day, and when we arrived, the hospital told us that we had to register with a local GP. And that's not normal for Irish women. I think it was because the hospital just hadn't experienced this kind of case before. But because of that, I wasn't down as an Irish statistic. And, you know, I think I would be one in thousands. So we went to the hospital the next day and I was treated like a new patient, checking in, like I was 12 weeks pregnant. I had to give them all my bloods again, and then I was taken to the fetal assessment unit to have a scan. And I was just hoping and praying that they would tell me something different and that everything would actually be okay, that my baby would live. But unfortunately, Dublin were 100% correct in their diagnosis. My baby was incompatible with life. So then they asked me what I wanted to do next. If we wanted to be induced immediately, and we both said yes. So the consultant then told us that for a baby to be induced at that stage of gestation, because of a UK law, they would have to receive an injection, which meant my baby would be asleep when she was born. You know, and ultimately, I was glad because I didn't want her to be conscious, you know, going through the trauma of birth. And then suffocating. So we went back in the next day and I was given a tablet to help soften my womb to get it ready for labour. and I was told to go home and come back in 48 hours, which I did. We went back in at 10 o'clock in the morning. I was given a pessary every 6 hours, and then I went into labour around about midnight. And they offered me pethidine. But I didn't want to be sleepy after the birth. I knew that I needed to spend time with my baby, and that this would be the only chance I would ever get. So I didn't have any drugs, I just used gas and air. And she was born at 5:30 in the morning. And she weighed in at 405 grams, which is less than a pound. And then my family started arriving to come and see her, to meet Bethan. They'd travelled from all over Britain to come and support me and my husband. And while they were there, a priest came in and he gave a blessing for Bethan. And then I went home to my mum's house and we started arranging the funeral. It takes about 3 weeks to organise a cremation in the UK. And then I have to say, you know, we had the funeral and it really helped with the whole process. I was able to say goodbye and to let her go. And then I went back to Ireland and I started talking to women who were in a similar, who'd gone through a similar situation. And I realised how lucky we were that we'd had family to be with in Britain. I can't imagine what it must be like to go over to another country and go through a procedure like that and then have to go back to a hotel room with only your partner. And then the next day, after having given birth, to get on a plane to go home. I don't see why anyone should have to go through that. And I know it's not the point, and it's not about the cost, but I also discovered that Irish women have to pay around about €2,000 to have this procedure done in the UK, and that's before you include travel, hotels, and funeral expenses. So imagine this happening to you and you don't have 3 grand sitting in the bank. I can't understand why we as a country are allowing other women to suffer and to be in more pain than is necessary. And I firmly believe, after having spoken to people in Ireland, that we are ready for this and ready to support this small change, especially if the woman's life is at risk, and especially if there is no chance that the baby will survive.